Some introductions this way. My name's Rob. I'm Rob Belcher. I'm with the City of St. Catharines and lead the Enterprise Center. Our office is called the St. Catharines Enterprise Center, and we are one of 47 offices across Ontario that deliver programming like this with support from the province of Ontario, the Ministry of Economic Development. And we're here to support small businesses, often at the startup phase, but also existing businesses use our services as well. So thanks to everybody for being here. I'm really excited about this presentation. Joe has been one of our favorite speakers. We're not supposed to have favorites. So when I say favorite speakers, it's in terms of the surveys we do after the fact. Joe's sessions he did with us last year were really well rated by our guests, and I've asked Joe to come back for another series of 6 webinars. So we'll be doing this every week with Joe. We had one last week, and some of you were here for that. And then we'll be carrying on over today, plus 4 more weeks after today. And I really encourage you, if you're interested in learning about digital marketing, to stay tuned and participate in each of the sessions. So let me introduce Joe Jones. Joe is the co-founder at Symetric Productions, and he has a really long background in computer programming and in web development and digital marketing. And I said the other day, Joe, last week, I said 18 years, but I was off by 2. You're in your 20th year in business now, and so you must have started when you're about 12, and that's okay. And Joe, I'll just turn it over to you in a second, but just to describe to everybody what Symetric does, they design and develop websites. They also have helped with print material and just put together a comprehensive marketing strategy for businesses. So it's a case where Joe and the team would chat with you about your business and your needs, and they would help you create success in building out your marketing plan for your business. Joe, I'll turn it over to you, and if you want to add anything more about Symetric, that would be great. But otherwise, the floor is yours. I'll help with some housekeeping by monitoring the chat and the Q&A. I know you usually do an awesome job of seeing it as it goes too. But if I notice anything, I'll jump in. I'll probably turn off my camera at some point just so I'm not distracting. And thanks again, Joe. Looking forward to hearing your talk on e-commerce today.
That's great. And just to verify, you can see my screen, correct?
Beautifully. It's perfect.
Awesome. Okay, good. We're good to go. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Rob said, yeah, I'm one of the co-founders of Symetric. Started it just 20 years now. June 1st of June will be 20 years for us. And so I did it with my business partner. We kind of did it part-time. Where I'd go to school in the morning. In the afternoon, I'd go to work from 12 to 9 o'clock at night, and then we would build websites from 9:30, 10 till early hours of the morning. And we did that for a number of years until I was working at Future Shop at the time, so that kind of dates me a little bit. And then when Future Shop got bought out by Best Buy, they restructured the whole company, and so there was an opportunity for me to kind of do this full time. And so that's when we started going full time and building our company and really just trying to change focus. So I've grown up in a family business, and so I kind of learned how to do some business things growing up in that selling. My family actually owned a flower shop, and so I learned how to design arrangement, sell flowers, anticipate the look on the guy's face when he came in because he knew he was in trouble and needed something to get him out of the doghouse. And so you learn some selling techniques right from the beginning as a young kid, and how to, position yourself and listen to your customers and grow your business. So we're going to talk about a little bit of that today. The focus that we're going to talk about is e-commerce, and whether you have a current site and you're looking to add e-commerce elements, or maybe you're just saying, I want to start fresh and I want to sell products online. So we're going to kind of go down that road a bit. So what is e-commerce? So e-commerce is basically any purchase of an item online that is paid for either online or offline, but begins with the official process of a purchase. So, placing an order, like now we're seeing it more than ever with COVID, right? You place an order, you do pickup, curbside pickup. Sometimes you're paying for that order up front. Sometimes you're paying for it when they've released the product to you. So basically that transaction process of buying a product online, however you're paying for it, that's what we're going to be talking about now. So for the purpose of today, we're going to focus on transactions that take place fully online. That could still be, like I said, a curbside pickup, but we're going to talk about the actual payment process, all that taking place online. So e-commerce and the stats. So 16% of worldwide retail sales are made online. Now this number, because of COVID, is constantly increasing. 65% of all shoppers search for price comparisons on their phone while they're in a store. So we've seen that a lot of the times. I think one of the biggest ones that I've heard people talk about is when they go into a bookstore and they're looking at the price of a book, say they're in chapters or something, they're comparing it with what the price is on Amazon. Maybe you go to Best Buy and you would know that they do price matching. You're comparing, some of the products that you see online and see if they'll price match your product, right? So 65% of shoppers will actually search for price comparisons on their phone while in the store. 75% of people make an online purchase at least once per month. I think now with COVID, that probably has increased drastically. 64% of all purchases online and offline start online. So you probably start your research, looking, doing all that online, maybe even if you don't buy the product online. 42% of US customers surveyed bought groceries online in March of 2020 due to COVID. So that's double the amount from 2019. And now we're still in that same boat. And so now with different restrictions and lockdown, we're obviously seeing that people are required and more comfortable now actually, making more of those purchases online. So for a great example, you go to the superstore here in the Niagara region, and you'll notice that when they first started, they probably had 4 pickup spots. Now they have like 10 to 15 different pickup spots for your groceries. So that demand has obviously increased with what the shoppers are looking for. And so that's kind of the stats, and they're not going to go away. I still believe after, the lockdown is lifted, we're still going to see a lot of people still wanting to do some of these shopping online. So the convenience, picking it up later, scheduling things, you've kind of become accustomed to it. They say it takes like 28 days to make a habit. So we're definitely past that. So I think some of those habits are going to be hard to break after. What e-commerce is not. So e-commerce is not submitting a form online. So you just go and you fill out, ask for a quote. That's not e-commerce. Booking a meeting, still not e-commerce. Inquiring about products or services, not e-commerce, or requesting specific information. That's just normal customer information and dealing with a customer. So how does e-commerce work? E-commerce works in a number of ways, but basically it all starts with the website. Even if you're going to sell products through other channels such as social media and different things like that, you still need an e-commerce platform. So you got to look at that as it all starts there. That is your foundation for everything. And then after you get that going, you're going to need to pick some sort of payment processor. There's multiple types of payment processors out there that you can work with to actually handle and process the credit card, or if you're doing Interact Online or whatever, there's different payment processors out there that will help you with that. And then you're going to need to figure out shipping. Shipping is always a big one because there's a lot of factors involved getting the product shipped: weights, dimensions, cost, shipping areas, all those things come into effect. Handling of your orders, how you're going to handle those orders, process them. Are you fulfilling them on your own? How are you getting the orders out? The communication process in between for a customer so they understand what's happening when an order takes place. All those things are usually handled by a platform. Security and reporting and maintenance. Obviously, security is key because you're handling people's personal information, their finances. Also, you want to make sure your finances are in check for that. You don't want your funds disappearing. Reporting and maintenance, understanding how many sales are coming in, how the products are doing, understanding the inventory, where you're low on stock, making sure you have that proper notification set up. So that all starts with the website. So when it all starts with the website, the couple things you need to ask yourself if you already have a website is, how does this affect your current site? So, does your current site have the ability to have info for every product, for example? If you're going to be adding products to your website, what fields need to be added to your site to handle online orders? And then maybe you need to look at, do you need to integrate a third party software to build the store, or are you going to build something custom? So there's some questions you need to ask yourself if you already have a website. If not, there's going to be some other choices for you to make as well. You still have to ask these questions, but you're probably going to take a different route by looking at a pre-existing platform or starting right from the beginning with an e-commerce build out of your current website. So one of the biggest ones that we get asked is payment processors. This is a difficult one because there's so many options out there. Like there's literally thousands upon thousands of options you can do with payment processing. So you're going to want to do some research. You're going to want to look at transaction fees. So transaction fees will be, typically a price per transaction and then a price per every sale that happens. There's usually some sort of percentage involved in that transaction. So depending on how your product system works and how pricey your products are, or how many sales you do, every day or every month, you're going to want to maybe weigh some of the options, because one could end up costing you way more if you're not looking at how the pricing structure works with some of those payment processors. Also understanding how currency conversions work. If you're selling your products into the US, for example, you have to look at US pricing, looking at different rates for going across the border, understanding all that information, how currency works, and making sure that you're not losing out. And then the last thing you need to figure out with that payment processor is how easy it is to integrate with your website. Some of them are pretty easy, and other ones are a lot more complicated. You're going to want to make sure that when you're looking at the integration, all the steps that are involved, what's going to be required from you, if you're going to need to get a programmer involved to integrate that, if it's just simple paste the code in. So there's going to be some things in there, and then the security factor that comes with that, what they're going to need to know. And to answer your question, will these slides be printable? Yes, I will give a link that the Enterprise Center can send out to everyone with links to the slides for you. Now, when we get into the payment processors, a couple things that you need to take into consideration. There's usually on the market two options. There's sometimes more than that, but there's two more common ones. One option is monthly cost. You're going to pay a monthly cost to the payment processor, and you're probably going to end up with a lower transaction percentage for every transaction. The second option is no monthly fee, so you're not going to pay anything monthly, but you're going to pay a higher price per transaction. So depending on how your products are, obviously if your product is expensive, it may be more beneficial to look at option one, because you can pay a smaller monthly fee and have to pay less in a percentage to the credit card processing company. Option two, maybe you're saying, okay, I don't know if I'm going to sell anything for a while. It's going to take me a little bit to gain some momentum. Maybe I want to go with option two, because now I'm not putting anything out of my pocket and I'm only being charged when I actually process a payment. So that's the different options that you want to look at. And then some of them also tack on a transaction fee as well. So sometimes it'll be a monthly cost, a percentage per transaction, and then an individual transaction fee, like 80 cents per transaction, for example. And then you also have to look at how they compensate. So if you're doing some of these different transactions, one thing you want to take a look at is what we call an interchange fee. An interchange fee is this. It means that when you have a credit card that has like points, like rewards, for example, we all seen those type of cards where, you buy something and you get rewarded and you get Aeroplan or whatever. Someone is paying, not you as the customer, but someone is paying for those rewards. And it's usually the person selling the product. And what I mean by that is that on top of your fee, an American Express card, for example, charge a higher transaction fee. So price per, a percentage. So when you're looking at those fees, not every credit card that you accept may be the same transaction fee. So we have the bigger cards, which the more elite ones, you may end up paying a higher price transaction percentage for those cards. Someone's paying for those rewards, and it's usually the person selling the product. So when you're going through some of that information, look to see if it's every card is across the board, or are you going to pay higher pricing for the bigger cards and lower pricing for the lower cards? Take a look at some of those options, because that can be a big difference in how profitable you are with your online sales. And then you may not want to take in American Express at all, because they're typically at least 3% every time there's a transaction. So picking the right payment processor, here's a couple examples out there that you need to look at. PayPal does a pretty good job. They have a mixed scenario, so you can kind of go either way, depending on what type of features you need. They do have just the normal price per transaction, and then they also have the other ones a little cheaper where you pay a monthly fee. So depending on what features you need, they have those type of options. I recommend Stripe a lot because they also have very similar setup and they're very easy to integrate. So you can do, it doesn't take a lot of coding to get a Stripe system on your website. It's a lot of it is plug and play. The really good thing about Stripe is they handle a lot of the security right off the bat. So when a customer puts their credit card into the system, it actually encrypts it all for you and it's doing a lot of that back end information. So you're not having to worry about it. There are ones out there like Moneris. Moneris is right through some of the banks like TD and all that you can get applications for. Moneris tends to be, it's a really good system. You can actually negotiate some of your rates. The only difficulty is you typically need a programmer to install that type of a system, unless there's already a pre-built integration with some of the other stores. So keep in mind when you're looking at payment processors, which ones, these are some of my recommendation. And then you can do custom. There's lots of them out there. Not that they're good or bad, but you just need to do your research and make sure that it's going to work for your business and what you're trying to do. So shipping is another one that we get asked a lot. Shipping is difficult because there's so many options. You got to pick your delivery method, right? So obviously right now we're seeing a lot of in-store pickup where you can do curbside, and that's a great feature to have. It eliminates a cost, but allows the user just to come in and pick up the product in your store. And then you can kind of get into a geographical limit for, if you want to ship within a region, a province, country, a global territory, you can kind of set how you want shipping to be done. There's also discussions about flat rate versus shipping area or price per kilometer. You need to kind of figure that out on your own, depending on what type of provider you're going with. So for example, a lot of wineries and things like that will use a local shipping provider because they can hit an area easily and they know a cost per every bottle that goes out, for example. When you get into shipping with something like Canada Post or UPS or FedEx and those type of things, a lot of them will have integrations right into your shopping cart platform to help you calculate the cost per shipping, but you're going to want to probably get away from a flat rate. The reason why is because they're going to base it on the weight of the product, the dimensions of the box that it's shipped in, and the distance from your warehouse, wherever you're shipping from, to the customer. And so those prices are all different. If you're using an integration, that's an easy calculation because it will actually transfer that data right to the user on the screen. So when the user goes to checkout, it will actually say, because you've inputted all the values already, when you're setting up your products in the store, it will actually tell the user this is how much it is to ship this product. And you can put in some additional fees in there if you want to help cover maybe some of your packaging costs and things like that to make sure you're not losing money. So to make sure you're not losing money, using one of those integrations is the best method to make sure that you're always charging the accurate amount of shipping. The only thing that comes into play is that there's usually a minimum fee no matter what. So if you're selling smaller products, maybe a bottle of shampoo is a great example. One bottle of shampoo, a user probably doesn't want to pay $15 in shipping for one bottle of shampoo. So you need to figure out how you're going to make that profitable, or maybe try to encourage the customer to do upsells when they're on the store. They say, hey, 10 more, buy 2 more products and your shipping is free, to help you get past that benchmark of those smaller products. And so you got to make sure that you're taking all that in consideration. The other thing that you need to kind of look at is handling orders. So when an order comes in, there's a lot of steps involved. The user goes to the website, they're adding their products to the cart. They're determining at the same time, the cart is determining whether products are available to be sold to the user, if they're in stock, that sort of thing. All that's being taken into consideration when you're doing that. And then automated emails need to go out. So once an order is placed, what happens, who needs to be notified? And these aren't always the same because your process may be different, or you may have specific information that you're trying to convey to the user that only relates to your business. So when an order gets placed, I'm assuming most people would want to get an email saying, hey, someone just placed an order on your website. Here's the details. Log into the website to fulfill the order. And then you're probably going to want another one when the order is being processed. And so then it sends an email out to the customer saying, when you hit the process button, hey, we're just letting you know that we're processing your order right now. We're going to be shipping it out shortly. Then once the shipping comes into play and you've packed the product, you put in your box, you hit another button that says shipping. And then usually if there's an integration, it's going to put in a tracking code that gets emailed to the customer, or sometimes you're pasting in a tracking code from a different provider and you're letting them know that the order is shipped. So there's different stages of the order process all the way through. And then probably you want some sort of tracking at the end. You wait so many days after the product has been shipped to do a follow-up with the customer to say, hey, you got your product. We hope that your experience was great. We would love to hear from you. Maybe leave us a review, go through that process with us. Let us know how we can be better and serve you more. We would love to keep you for a client for life. So going through that process with the tracking code, talking about those different things, even talking about your returns or your warranties or how they do replacements. Some of those things need to be tackled in this handling of an order. And some of it you may want to think about long term, because if you're offering returns or warranties, you want to make sure that you have enough profit in there to be able to handle that. Or if the customer is paying for the return of that product, that you've clearly stated that. I've also seen some people do restocking fees on a product when it comes back into inventory. So looking at some of that information and making sure it's all clear will help really make sure that your customers understand what's going on. Some of the security features you need to understand is SSL certificate. So basically that SSL certificate, when you go to a website and you see that little lock in the corner on the address bar, that's an SSL certificate. That means that the information between you and the customer and anyone else is secure, that there's an encryption in place. So that is required if you're taking payments online. Google actually went as far to say now that even if you're not taking payments online or collecting sensitive information, they still want every website to have that SSL certificate. So those can range anywhere from, some of the services offer it within the shopping experience. And then, depending on your hosting platform, they can be as little as $10 a month or go all the way up to, thousands. Most times you'll be fine with the SSL, around $10 a month, unless you're really collecting some really personal information, health data. Then you may want to look at, or really, getting a person to fill out a whole credit card application form. You're going to want some higher security because you're putting in really personal sensitive data. So just make sure that your website or your shopping platform has that SSL certificate enabled and it's there. Reporting, you're going to want to make sure that any type of e-commerce platform that you're integrating or you're building or you're setting up has reporting features. Most people want to know how many people came to the store, what products they looked at, how many people abandoned the cart, so they added products into the cart and then left, how many orders they're getting, what are their most popular products, if they're being profitable or not. Those type of things are all good for reporting. You're also going to want some mechanism if you're using any accounting software to take all your transactions and then put them into your accounting system. You're going to have to probably still pay HST and your vendors. So you still need to have some sort of accounting system that you're integrating with to make sure that you're doing all those things. If you have employees, you're going to want to, have payroll attached to all that. So you're still going to want to make sure that whatever your accounting needs are, that you can get that data into that accounting system. Maintenance is as well. Looking at maintenance, you're going to want to definitely figure out, some things that can be involved in your maintenance. So how often you need to check on your inventory or product updates. If the pricing is offered at different times of the year for promotions, doing some maintenance on your site. Also updating it frequently. So a great example of that is you only have one opportunity when someone comes to the store. So you want to make sure that you're going through your store frequently, making sure that products are working, nothing's broken. It's same as a retail environment, right? If you went into a retail environment and you never changed the products on your shelf, you never had a special, you never had a deal, everything will look the same every single day. It's not a great first impression to a customer. It's also not a great impression if the user comes back and they never see anything new. So putting some systems in place to make sure that your e-commerce is always updating, putting in new graphics, adding some new products or changing out some product images to make it better to try to sell more, maybe offering specials, maybe even doing some marketing campaigns, emailing your customers, looking at some of those follow-up emails that you've done. Maybe putting in things in place like an abandoned cart email. Once they've left, you want to maybe send them an email, say, hey, we noticed that you didn't bought a product. What could we do to help you? Did you get all your questions answered? Maybe looking at some other things, such as putting a chat system in place to help answer questions when a user comes in. Looking at all that data and understanding, what can make your store better. A lot of the times, these type of features aren't done right off the bat because it's a big undertaking just to get your store launched, never mind to get all these features, and you probably want data to make better informed decisions of what features are actually working for you. So looking at some of those things over time, putting in some checkpoints, every couple months to make sure that everything's working, and going through the process. Also, the other thing here is trying to figure out which type of a platform. So there's lots of platforms out there. So you have kind of two options. We can go with a template or a pre-built system, and that can be has some pros and cons. So for example, if you're doing a templated system, they're usually more cost effective because you're not paying for all these custom features to be designed right off the bat. You're using what's already available. They can be pretty quick because everything's built. You're kind of just inputting your data and customizing it to what you want it to be. And they're usually simplistic because they've had enough time and feedback to kind of go through the process with shop owners and customers to make sure that experience is good. It's easy to integrate because there's usually a lot of other type of plugins that you can use to integrate to things and make it kind of more flexible with what you want. The cons, though, is that it's not always as flexible. So with any templated system, it's designed for a purpose and a goal. So that means some of the custom flexibility that you may want may not always be available. So you have to take that into consideration. But on the other side, you're not having to pay for every feature to be built. They're already built. So you kind of got to weigh what your options are. So a great scenario would be if you're looking to sell products every day, kind of the same type of thing, probably a template would work. If you're looking to have a unique subscription type of system where users are signing up and they can edit their box every month, for example, and try to check out and get different features and upsells, you may be crossing the line into something that needs to be custom, because a lot of the platforms don't support that type of functionality. So depending on how your e-commerce system is going to work, function, your features that you're going to need, and how you want your users to interact, you have to pick and choose between flexibility template or custom and see what supports your needs. Also, the standard sales funnel, your users kind of always go through the same sales process in more of these templated systems because they know it works and it's designed for a purpose. And then often a lot of them lack support. So because the monthly fees are so low, they don't want to get involved in building out the store. So you're kind of stuck kind of figuring out a lot of it on your own. They do offer a lot of great tutorials and things like that, but you're going to have to go through some of the pain process of understanding the system, setting it up, or working with someone to build that out for you. But you're not going to always have the same support as you would if you had a custom system where they built it and they're on a retainer for you to make sure everything's up and running. So looking at those options could be, depending on how computer savvy you are and how much you're willing to put in and learn and grow it, it may be a differentiating factor. So a couple of the platforms out there that are templates based there's Shopify, which is kind of my favorite out there. I would say it's one of the best ones out there. It has the most integrations, I would say. It seems to be one of the simpler ones to do, and you don't need anything else. So there's other ones like a WooCommerce, for example, great system. You can start up for free, but you have to have in most cases, you have to have another website that it can integrate into, like a WordPress website that it integrate into. So you still need to have another system. So depending on what you're looking to do, you could probably, most cases, get away with a Shopify, and they have a lot of features. So for example, some of the integrations that these platforms offer, you can actually sell your products right on social media. So you put all your products into the Shopify system. So that's your website, and you have everything set up, and then you pick these sales channels. And those sales channels allow you to sell those products on other partners they've integrated with. So you can actually sell that product right on Instagram. You can tie it into Facebook. You can tie it into Amazon and have the power of some of those other platforms to help leverage your sales. If you do a custom solution, you can still do those things, but it's going to be a lot more work and money to get those features built the way they need to be built. So, that's where you're really trying to figure out, do I really need to go the custom route? So for example, we build custom sites and custom platforms, but I would say it's only for a select few who absolutely need that type of a system. We also go and help our customers, build out the templated solutions and get them up and running, and build out those systems for them. So depending on what you're looking to do, you have to weigh those options. So the prices for some of those platforms, they're usually around the $30 mark. Some of them are free, but you're going to pay in other ways because they still need to make their money. But they start around the $30 a month mark for those platforms. And then whatever cost, if you're going to buy a template or use a free one, if you're going to get someone to kind of set it up and build it and launch it for you, you're going to have those fees on top of it. And then you're going to have your transaction fees per month. If you're integrating with another provider, there may be some fees there. So you'll have to look at some of those fees. Most of the providers don't offer email though. So that's the other thing you got to figure out. You still need some sort of email tool. So, if you wanted like sales@yourdomain.com, you would probably need to get someone to set up, or you're another hosting provider to get you set up with an email address at that. You can always use a free one like a Gmail or something like that. I just tend to feel it doesn't look as professional from a store standpoint, from a legitimacy. If you're getting an email from a Gmail account, you don't really have the same confidence in knowing that this is actually the store that I'm getting the email from. So, take a look at some of those things and make sure that it's how you want it to be presented. The other thing in here is the custom. So custom, in theory, you can kind of get it to whatever you want. So you can customize your sales funnel. It can be as scalable as you want because you can build that thing out over in stages. It can be as flexible as you want. You're probably going to have a high level of support because you're working with a team all the time to build out this website, but you're going to have a significantly higher initial cost because when you're talking about custom, all of those features need to be built, or they need to be modified to make it work for your specific product or service. So there's going to be, you're going to have a design fee usually because there's not going to be a template involved. You're going to have a building out of every product page. You're going to have an integration of the modules, building all those things out. You're going to have, support that you're going to be required. And there's less integration. So we're going to have to look at building those integrations out because they all have to be, tied in a specific way. And then you got to figure out how you want, any of your reporting done because it's a unique thing. The reports aren't just there. You're going to have to figure out what type of reporting do I need? How do I want these reports to be built? And what do I need to look at? What's the information that's valuable to me? So looking at some of those things will help you determine. And the other thing that we need to figure out in this process is the ongoing involvement. So looking at some other places out there. So for example, when you build a store, keep in mind that I typically tell people that if you get a store within the if you get sales within the first 6 months, you're doing well. It takes a while to build that audience. It takes a while to get sales. It's not just build it and as soon as you build it, all of a sudden the floodgates are going to open. You're going to get all these sales. If it does, come and talk to me because I need to know your secret, but it typically does not happen that way. So usually I tell people it's a process. You got to have, when you're thinking about the cost of your store, when you're thinking about, doing e-commerce online, you can't just stop at the build. You have to think about a marketing type of platform that you're going to do to get the word out there. So if you think again, go back to any retail environment, there's some sort of marketing pitch or campaign that happens to get customers to come to the store, whether they're doing a big sign, a grand opening, they're doing, emails, they're doing bulletin board ads, whatever they're doing some sort of marketing campaign to get people into the store. The same thing has to happen online. So even when we're talking about some search engine stuff, Google just doesn't look at your e-commerce site right away and you get first page ranking. That has to come over time. So you might want to look at buying ads to help get you increase those sales as soon as you're launching. You also want to make sure that when people are coming to your store, you have some sort of mechanism to keep in touch with them. So I always tell all of our clients that when you've built a store or a website, in essence, even if you've done nothing, you've paid something for that person to land there. You've put money, time, resources, energy into building that platform. So if you're not selling anything or they haven't bought anything, at least at bare minimum, try to capture their information. We know from the sales industry that usually it takes about 5 touch points before a customer is actually, ready to actually make a buying decision. So if it's the first time they've heard about your product or the first time they've heard about the sale, unless they're that real impulse buyer, they probably won't buy on the first time. So having some sort of system in place to capture their information, to go through the process, to maybe follow back up with them is key. Because now you've captured their information, you can continue that sales journey with them. You can educate them more on some of the products or services that you're offering, and you can help build that, rapport with that customer over time. But if you've not captured that information, they're kind of just sitting there and you haven't done anything to kind of engage with them. So when you think about a retail environment, when someone walks into that physical retail store, that salesperson's responsibility is to build rapport with the client. So their job is to go in to find out what the customer is looking for, to ask the right questions, to try to find some common ground so they can build some conversation, show the customer the product or service, ask for the sale, and then check them out. So the website can do some of those things if you've built it properly, right? It needs to be your biggest salesperson. So it needs to be investing into that relationship with the customer as soon as they're coming. So you have to have things in place. So maybe you're going to have, like I said, that chat where it's going to help answer questions. Maybe you want to put an FAQ section on your store to help eliminate some of those what ifs. Maybe you want to offer a discount first time visitors. We want to build a relationship with you. Here's a discount to buy a product for the first time with us. Maybe you want to look at some other mechanisms, affiliates or referral codes to help send out information and get their friends to buy products as well. And so some of those things you need to think about. So when you're going through the process, don't just think about the build. Make sure you have a plan in place to actually continue it forward. You're going to spend a lot of time, be frustrated, and be discouraged that your store is not where it needs to be within a certain period of time. And don't be discouraged if you don't see a sale for 6 months. That's how it goes. It takes time to build those first number of sales. Once you get a couple going, it becomes easier. You're getting tractions. So don't be discouraged with any of that. It takes time to build it. And the last thing I'll mention is that when you're looking at design, my suggestion would be first, if you're picking a template, is to have a list of all your products and your services, the content that you want to say before you even look at a template. The reason why is because when designers design templates, they design it to make you buy it, right? The goal is to attract the buyer into buying this template. So if you're looking at the flashiest, nicest one, wow, this is really beautiful, I love this, that could be a good thing. But it could also be a negative thing if you're now trying to put content into a mold that's not going to work. And a user will identify with that. We've all been to a website before where we looked at a product, and we're like, I don't know if this website's legit. I don't know if I actually want to put my credit card in there. So there's usually something that's telling the user that, hey, hold on here. So my advice is always write your content first. Start off with your content, start off with your product, your pitch, your demographic that you want to go after, and then look for a template that will fit the mold. Don't go the other way and look for a template and try to jam your content in. You'll usually end up with a not great user experience, and it's going to be a lot difficult because you're going to be trying to figure out why isn't this working. But if you start with the other approach, you're going to find a template that'll probably work better for you. And if you can't, you can still get someone to design something custom for you, design a custom template, but at least you're starting off making sure that you're actually attracting the right user and making sure that you're getting what you need to convey out there and making sure that brand is consistent. So that's kind of e-commerce in a